Okay, so why do we do that? Well, often because of these social norms. Social norms are these unwritten, unspoken rules for how to behave in society. So there are a bunch of different examples. We have social norms for how you stand in an elevator. You know, you walk in, you turn around, you face the front, press your button, you space out. Like there are different things that you might not realize you're doing. Um, but there's some pretty cool YouTube clips of individuals who strategically will face the opposite way in the elevator and watch as strangers slowly start to match them. Like maybe they know something I don't know, type of thing. We also have social norms for how you eat at a restaurant, the different things that you say, but the steps that you take, um, whether you put your fork on your plate or on the side, or how you elbows on the table. Like they're different things that we just have social norms for. Um, Going to school, the way that you interact in an academic setting in a classroom. But one thing to point out is that social norms vary by society. They vary by culture. So for example, eating at a restaurant, in the US, we might say, we might burp and be like, oh, excuse me. But in China, it's considered a compliment to burp after a meal. It's the sign that you've eaten well. Um, in India and Japan, for instance, you could finish everything on your plate. That's a respect for you enjoyed the food. You shouldn't waste any food. But in China, finishing everything on your plate might be a sign that you're still hungry. So like your host didn't feed you well enough. And then in Ethiopia, for instance, individual plates are considered wasteful. So folks just will share meals off one communal plate. So this is just an example of how what we might be used to in the US completely is different and normal in different ways across different cultures. Okay, so this whole strategy of matching your behavior, matching your appearance to what you perceive as social norms is called conformity. You're conforming to what other people are doing. So other people have their videos on, you conform and you match that behavior. Other people have rated this product as higher, so you conform and you choose that product. So it's a thing that we all kind of implicitly do. If you think about why this might happen, a lot of times if you're in an ambiguous situation, you might conform to what other people around you are doing. So, you know, you walk into a classroom for the first time and you're not quite sure where you should sit or whether you should pull out notes or whether you should whatever. And you notice that people around you all have their laptops out, so you pull your laptop out. Or if you're not sure how to dress for a job interview, you might conform to what other people at that company wear. And it also is kind of a protection against rejection by that society, because if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're less likely to be rejected by that social group as being different or standing out. Okay, so those examples though were all like kind of subjective social norms. There wasn't necessarily a right answer on how to, you know, walk into a classroom or eat at a restaurant per se, right? If it's an ambiguous or open situation, you tend to follow the group. But what about when there is objectively a correct answer? Do people conform in those situations? So I'm going to introduce you a really famous study called Ash's Conformity Study from 1951. So he showed participants this type of screen. He asked participants to match the line from Exhibit 1 to one of 3 comparison lines. So which line is the same length as Exhibit 1? So I want you to think of your answer. At least, I think it looks like A, right? So let's say if we just asked you by yourself, you'd probably be confident in that it's A. But what if someone else answered before you and someone said B first? Maybe you double check, do a mental calculation of B. No, that doesn't seem right. Okay, so you might hesitate, but you might stick with A. So what if an entire group of people all think it's B? Would you start to really second guess yourself there? Maybe they're saying something you don't, Maybe there's something off with your glasses or something. Oftentimes, people will second guess themselves and switch their answer. So in this study, Ash did exactly that. So he put one real participant in a room of fake people, fake participants who were in on the thing. We call those Confederates. And he had those Confederates, the people who are in on the joke, respond first. And they provided incorrect answers on purpose. And about a third of the time, the real participant would conform to the group and deliberately choose the wrong answer. So what this graph is showing is that when there's no one else in the group, people don't conform. People will tell you the right answer. When there's maybe one or two people, not as many, but some people will switch. And as group size gets to, 4 or greater, that's enough to get people to convince that they'd rather just be a part of the group than stand out. Now, we're going to talk about one other famous psych study that deals with conformity. We can't go through social psychology without going through the Stanford Prison Experiment. So let's start off with a brief overview from SciShow Psych describing this experiment, and we'll go deeper in depth.